everyone. Thank you for tuning in to episode 22 of the Syracuse Sports Business Conference Digital Series. My name is Jack Lippert, and I'm the marketing coordinator here at the SSBC. Joining us as moderator this evening is SU alumnus Keith Lippert, class of 78 and 2009 Whitman Entrepreneur of the Year. He has also been on the Whitman Advisory Council for the past 3 decades, but most importantly, he's my dad. With that being said, I hope you all enjoyed tonight. Dad, take it away.
Gee, thanks, Jack. How cool is that? A top 5 moment. My son introduces me, and how fitting is it that it happens for this event? Because if there's one person I know who may love his son more than I love Jack, it's tonight's guest, Mark Sanchez, who I have no doubt when his 4-year-old son, Daniel, comes of age, that little man is going to have the same experience with his father as Jack just did with me. So to my young friend, who I affectionately will always call the QB, I say welcome and thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I am Jack's, #1 fan, depending on if you count dad or not. So big fan of Jack Lippert over here.
There you go. Well, we appreciate that on behalf of the entire Lippert family. So I'm going to take a little different tack. I'm going to assume that the majority of these students are in a position within the next year that they are going to take the next step in their life as they move beyond their education. So with that as a theme, what I'd like to do is say to you, take us back to the end of your playing career and share with us your mindset as the reality that the priority of playing football on every competitive level since junior high school was coming to an end to you. And how challenging was it to prepare for your next career move? And did you know what you wanted to do, or becoming a commentator just evolved?
Yeah, it's a really good question and a good point, a great theme. And most importantly, when I personally got to that point, a lot of that was based on, this new addition to my life and my son, Daniel, who you guys obviously know, who's just turned 4 about a week and a half ago. And at that time, he was just a little guy. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And being away from him for 9 months with my situation as a co-parenting situation wasn't going to fly. And so, I was forced to make some tough decisions. But at the end, I had, just about checked all the boxes that I wanted to as a player, other than getting to a Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl, which, as a competitor, those kind of things, they'll keep me up at night forever, but that's just the way life goes. And then it was, okay, what's this next move? What does this look like? And I kind of had to do an internal State of the Union with, finances, real estate assets, career, potential moves, all that kind of stuff. And the idea was, all right, a lot of these, I basically boiled it down to a lot of the things that made me successful in football are going to make me successful in the rest of my life, whether it's hard work, teamwork, being good with people, being able to talk, feeling comfortable talking in front of groups, that kind of stuff. I knew what skills I had and what helped me on the field. Now it was, okay, what am I going to channel that energy towards? Because I don't want my kid seeing me as like some guy who just finished playing football, made a bunch of money, and that's kind of it, right? Like that didn't sit well with me. I wanted him to see me working and continue to work hard and provide for him, even though I didn't necessarily have to work anymore. I don't have to go to a 9-to-5 job, but still there's different ways to work. And so I thought, knowing what I know about football, this could be a seamless transition if I did it the right way with media and being able to talk about football and start there and then eventually cross over and do some other things. Whether it's more entertainment side, whether it's the Masked Singer, stuff like that, little things would come up along the way and I'd be able to branch out, grow my brand and evolve a little bit. And so I went to a broadcasting boot camp. That was, one of the most important things you got to do, whatever field it is you got to get reps, right? You got to immerse yourself in that field and figure out yes, no, maybe, but can I make this my future? And so the NFL, I was very fortunate. They offer a broadcasting boot camp. And that's essentially where I got started. They have you call a game. They have you work from the studio with, you and just a host, you and, 2 analysts and 1 host, 3 analysts, 1 host, to get you used to giving a quick answer, a little longer answer, and a really long answer, and understanding how long 30-second answer is on TV and how much information and facts you can put into 30 seconds, a minute and 30 seconds, whatever it is. And so we go through all those drills. They taught you how to start a podcast. They taught you how to be on the radio. They gave you contacts for people, to reach out to if you had any questions. And so you essentially put a reel together in a matter of 3 days. And it was at Bowling Green.
Right.
And so we went out there, did the boot camp. Essentially, you just sent out your tape to CBS, NBC, ESPN, ABC, you name it, all the big networks that are covering sports, Fox, NFL Network, all of them. And we sent that tape out, and then you wait for replies. And so I was starting to piece together a schedule for the fall, 2 years ago. And it was going to be, USC radio, calling some of the football games, doing some hits on NFL Network, and maybe a couple things with Fox, maybe calling a couple games late in the year, almost like garbage games that, the teams that are, 2-10 and, 3-9 or whatever, those kind of
Jets,
games.
The Jets,
Exactly.
the Jets. You gotcha.
Ouch. So that was going to be my schedule. And then I got a chance to go out and interview with ESPN. And basically, the job that was opening was Mac Brown's old job, Chip Kelly's old job, but it's essentially Saturdays with Kevin Nagandi. And you go through a noon game, a 3:30 game, and a 7:30 game, and you do the halftime and post-game wrap-up of those games. Huge platform, nationally televised, great network with ABC. And I'm flying out there to do this interview, and my agent's like, listen, you should go interview, but you're definitely not going to get this job. That's just kind of the way he said it. And I was like, what the hell? So I go out. We literally went through the Clemson-Alabama game that had just happened when Clemson beat them up a couple years ago. And, I talked about what I saw. I basically voiced over a highlight. I flew all the way to Bristol, Connecticut to voice over a 30-second highlight. It seemed a little silly, but you sit down with people out there, and that was really the interview. And a week later, they called back and they said, all right, you're our guy. We want you. And they auditioned like 25 people to do it. So I was like blown away. And my agent's like, well, who turned it down? I'm like, what the hell? Maybe I just did well. Okay.
There you go.
So,
of course.
So all that other stuff, the USC radio, the NFL Network, all that had to take a back seat because this was a bigger platform and a better opportunity. And so that's essentially how I got started. I'm on the 2nd year of that deal. They put me in Get Up, a show on Friday mornings that I know Keith watches. And what else? I'll do, a couple of the New Year's 6 games. Last year, we got to do the Fiesta Bowl and the national championship. This year, with COVID protocols, I think it might be a little different. We're still debating on whether there's going to be a Rose Bowl and if I can get up there to the Rose Bowl and broadcast from there. But that's essentially my journey. So the themes and things I would take away from that is just figure out what you're good at, figure out what your next transition potential move is, and then get immersed in that, ingrain yourself with those kind of people that are going to help you along that new path. And then a lot of the skills that you've used to get to where you're at, you're going to need them moving forward as well, whatever field you're in.
Okay, so let's kind of break that down a little bit and take a few steps back. At the outset, what kind of trepidation did you have? Did you ever doubt yourself? What did you do to overcome those mental challenges and become more confident in your effort and your outcome? Because obviously, even though you were excited about this, you went to the boot camp, it's still something new. We're all human. So talk a little bit about, especially for these students as they take their next step, what were some of the things that were going through your mind in terms of, could I do this? Or I had the confidence to do that. Share that with us.
I'm, me now, I'm a pretty confident guy. Things I just feel like are going to work out. And if they don't work out, it's because something else is about to work out right after that. That's just kind of how I am. But when you get into TV, golly, they don't tell you anything. They just kind of expect you to know. And I remember getting to the hotel the night before the show and like, are we going to do a production meeting? This was my first Saturday at ABC. And I'm like, are we going to do a production meeting? Do we like run through some of the highlights or, you know, and they're just like, no. And I was like, okay. And they said, just meet us at DC2 at 11 o'clock, you know, be clean shaven and suit and tie and be ready to roll. And I'm like, do we have to coordinate like suit colors or how does this work? And they just said, you know, we'll see you at 11 at DC2. And I'm like, okay, hang up the phone. I'm like, oh, where's DC2? Like, I don't know what the campus is. There's no orientation. There's nothing. You just show up. So I'm there at like 10 o'clock expecting to be lost for at least an hour. I find it in like 15 minutes. And so I'm kind of sitting in the dressing room. In comes Kevin Nagandi. In comes Jonathan Vilma. And we're going over stuff for the day, the different games we have, all that kind of stuff. But there was no script. It was just, you're on TV. And to me, I was honestly blown away because even in the NFL, there's preseason games, there's training camp, there's off-season workouts, all before you get to a real game. So you have an idea like what it's like to get dressed in the locker room, run out for warm-ups. Where do I go warm up? Who do I throw with? Where do we start passing lines? Where do we start the handoff line? Like you just know what to do because you've done it. On TV, they literally throw you on national TV with nothing. And there's just a producer with an earpiece like this. He's talking to you. I got a mic on and you're live. And they show a highlight and you either jump in on the highlight or Jonathan jumps in on the highlight. And that's it. And you just do that all day long. So I was like, what in the world? Like, I just couldn't believe they let people do that without any kind of prep. Because what if you just totally blow it? What if you freeze up? What if you say something wrong? What if, you know, and I guess they just expect you not to. And that was the other thing. I went through 5-6 weeks and nobody gave me any feedback. And I was just kind of like, wow, is this good or bad? Or I remember after the first segment we did a halftime segment where like, you know, it's like 8 minutes or something like that. And there's 2 commercial breaks. And so we're just ripping through highlights. And at the end of the day, I just remembered something that I heard at Broadcasting Boot Camp. And it was, whenever you feel like you're overwhelmed or nervous or anything, if you're voicing over a highlight, you played football for a very, very long time. So they're going to ask you a football question. You just give them a football answer. That's it. Don't make it any harder than it needs to be. And so that's always stuck with me. But as soon as we get done with the first thing, with our first halftime, Bill Graff, who was our like producing director, and he walks in the thing and he goes, "Hey, Mark, you're doing great. The only thing I would say is just project a little more." And I'm like, project a little more. And so I was like, so be louder. And he goes, no, not louder. Just project a little more. He's got this high pitched voice. He's a short little chubby guy and awesome dude. And I was like, okay, so what do you mean? Should I move the mic so I sound, is this a volume thing or what is this? He goes, just project a little more. And I'm like, Bill, I don't know what that means.
That's hilarious.
I really don't know what that means. So the second segment we're on, I'm literally like talking into the mic like this. And I said, here you see Trevor Lawrence roll out, keep his eyes up down the field. He remains a passer. This is what you want to do when you're on the run. And Bill's like in my ear, Mark, move your mic down. You're too loud. Move your mic down. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what that means. So I think when I went back and listened to it, there was just, my voice sounded a little more timid. I just didn't sound like me. There wasn't any bass in it. I was just kind of a little nervous. And so it came across on the broadcast. So no matter what you do, whenever it's new, you're going to be nervous. There's that moment right before we come on camera because they'll count down in your ear and you kind of hear a click and boom, you know, it's on. It feels like running out of the tunnel in some ways for a game. Like it's here. The game's here. You prepped your ass off. Now it's time to go have fun. And so there's that moment of just having to, you know, jump. And so that's with anything, it always happens that way, but that's kind of the way it was for me.
All right. Inside joke, Sanchez, was there a motorcycle outside of the facility the first night you were there?
No.
We'll let you tell that. We'll let you tell that later. Okay. So So, all right. So let's look at that a little bit. So you make the decision to pivot to commentating. Discuss the preparation that went into this new skill set. What came easy? What were you initially challenged by? And what surprised you in this journey to get to that point?
I think one of the easiest things is just interacting with people. I'm very good with people. I can get along with just about anybody, and I think a lot of that is playing sports like I did growing up. Sports teach you so much, and the idea behind playing sports from my dad's perspective was it wasn't to be the quarterback of the New York Jets. It wasn't to give a press conference in front of hundreds of reporters. That wasn't the goal. But when he would make me give the thank you speech and give the Applebee's gift card to our Little League coach and his wife and thank them for all their time in front of my peers, the 12 players on our baseball team and their families. I hated doing it as a kid. I really did. I resented it. It made me upset at my dad, and it was so embarrassing, and I was nervous to do it. But it got me comfortable speaking in front of people. So I've never had that issue later on. And so that came easy. Just talking to people, producers, other talent members, hosts, all that, that's been easy. I think one of the toughest things, and it took a lot of time and reps, is how much information you can get in to certain window blocks. And when it's appropriate to jump in and add to someone else's commentary. And, we were talking about this just before the Zoom. Nowadays, with all these Zoom calls and remote broadcasts and everything, the personal interaction and your your nonverbal cues are very difficult. It's hard to get in a good flow with somebody over Zoom because, especially when there's multiple people talking, because you kind of step on each other's toes and you never get in a real rhythm. Well, when you're in studio and we're voicing over highlights, we're like hunched over the desk looking at the thing and we're talking, and Kevin's reading some of his script, going through some of his notes, saying, boom, and the Jayhawks are up by 12, and look at this, blah, 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 whatever. And I'll just motion to Kevin if I see something on the screen that I want to talk about. Boom. I'm telling him, hey, give me the mic. And we're not on camera, so I could do whatever. So I'm like, pass it to me, or Vilma's kind of looking at him, or now Booger McFarland is kind of looking at him like, bring it my way, or you go first, whatever. And so we can kind of handle that. But understanding how long a 30-second answer is, it sounds so silly, but it's really hard. And the most important thing is to just lead with your best stuff. Whatever the point is, lead with your best stuff. And then occasionally, if you're going to switch it up, you switch it up with, if it's, who's going to win, the Browns or the Ravens? Well, don't go through like a 25-second answer and say Ravens. They want you to say the Ravens are going to win, and here's why. Because if I'm the viewer, I don't want to wait for all these reasons and then be like, oh, wait, who's he talking about again? Oh, yeah. It just doesn't flow, right? So you got to say, here's why Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are going to beat the crap out of the Browns. Boom. And then you give your answers. Now, if I have 30 seconds or 45 seconds, now I know how many reasons I need to have, right? If I'm in 30-second window, I got about 2 good points to expand upon. And that's pretty much it. If it's 3, they better be fast. If I'm going to throw out any stats, it's got to be real fast. If I have 45 seconds or a minute, oh, dude, I'm relaxing. That's when I could come in with a quick story or something funny or whatever. So like last week when we ended the broadcast on Get Up, we're finishing up and I went a little long because I went on this rant joking around about the Browns. And I had said it about them before to the producer the night before when we went over our topics for Get Up, but it was this most recent Monday night game yesterday. And he's like, so you picking the Browns? It sounds like you're kind of high on the Browns based on our conversation. I was talking about their play action game. I was talking about how Baker was playing better, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I just can't go with the Browns. They're tough for me. And so my reason was a little long and it was silly, but I just said, they're like the Instagram model that you think is so hot. And then you meet her in person and you realize she's just great with filters and editing her pictures. And then the next thing you know, you wake up in the morning and there's fake eyelashes all over your pillow. And everybody just fell out laughing. Well, I had already had that conversation with the producer. And so I said it on air and you just see Ryan Clark and Bart Scott like, what? So it just kind of, every once in a while you can do something like that. that's how I know I'm more comfortable doing this stuff. But,
Yes.
you know, that can't be every time. You don't get to give a funny story every time. It just gets a little old, a little stale. And you got to give other people their space and their real estate to be themselves and use their personality too.
So you touched upon this a little bit, but I want to expound upon, you know, in your comfort zone as a quarterback, as an athlete, which of those qualities were really helpful as you made this transition? You know, you're, as you said, you're always someone, you have a lot of confidence, which is one of the qualities I respect in you the most. And you're always on your game, but this was different. So which of the qualities did you steal from your playing career and your leadership roles that are helpful now?
Man, communication's been key. That was obviously my major in college, but I think being able to ad lib a little bit, being able to riff a little bit, and you know, when things aren't quite perfect, because you find that out as a quarterback, especially at that level when you're in the NFL, it's rarely when you get just a 5-step drop, there's no pressure, a clear throwing lane, you take one little reset, you pat the ball, and it's perfect, right? Like that happens maybe 3 times a game, maybe. Everything else is just troubleshooting and figuring it out. Don't be a problem identifier, be a problem solver. And so that naturally bled over, into television. And there was a point this year where a fill segment, the definition is essentially when some sort of technical difficulty or, you know, rain or weather delay interrupts a broadcast, and now they have to send it to us in the studio, and we fill the time. That's why it's called the fill segment, right? So we had an hour-and-a-half fill segment straight with no commercial breaks early in the season. I think it was week 2 this year. And back to preparation, because this involves that too, because I prepared my ass off as a player, and now I have to do it as a commentator as well. But they send it to the studio, and our producer literally within 5 seconds goes, "Fellas, we got a big fill here. The truck went out on site at the Tulane Navy game." And, you know, in most cases I'd be like, "Tulane Navy? Like, what? Who cares? Like, why are we, let's just show highlights of something else." Well, what I realized is these teams are like contractually, and the network is contractually obligated to broadcast this game. Well, when the truck goes out and nobody's commentating over the game, there's nothing. It's just showing the game. And the camera people are still operating, but there's no sound. So they throw it to us, and we're essentially calling a game, which I've never done in my life. And we're calling a game of 2 teams that nobody has any idea about, unless you're like a hardcore, you know, service academy fan, like Navy, or Tulane, like you're from New Orleans or something. So I'm like, what? Well, that week, because that was our game at 3:30, I did a little research on the teams, whatever teams we have, I'll print out their roster, whatever. So I'm like digging in my backpack, grabbing stuff. And thank God, a guy that I was drafted with the Jets went to Tulane, and he saw that we had the ABC game. So that week, he sends me some notes on Tulane. I said, "Hey, just in case, what do you got on Tulane? Because I don't know much about them. It's not like I'm going to watch a bunch of tape on Tulane. We're not really talking about that game. We're just doing halftime talking about all the other games." So he sends me some stuff, and boom, I have like essentially bullets in the chamber of all these things, right? And so, "Hey, look at this defensive tackle, big number 7, so-and-so, so-and-so. Yeah, you know, he's actually from whatever county, blah, blah, blah. And this kid's a stud. And really his job this week, since they're playing against the triple option, you just got a submarine at the line of scrimmage. You want to take up real estate, make it difficult for the offensive lineman to get to the second level and block the linebacker. So it's essentially a stalemate up front. This guy's got the dirtiest job on the field all game long, man. He needs to get the participation medal. He needs to get something after this game, right?" So I'm like, I go off on that. And Kevin Nagandi looks at me, because we're not on camera. We're just voicing over the game. And he's like, how did you know that? How do you even know who this guy is? Then I said, "You know what the best part about this thing? This Tulane football program, they're sure trending in the right direction. And part of it is because it's a family atmosphere. Now, the head coach, his recruiting coordinator is his son. So this transcends football now. The son essentially goes out and buys the groceries, and the dad cooks the dinner. He goes and finds these 5-star players, brings them to his dad. His dad coaches them up. That's how they get the final product on the field. So like it was stuff like that. And I'm literally riffing off the cuff. Like I have no idea what the hell's going on, just like everybody else. But the producer is like, I love it. I love fucking gold. Excuse me. He's like, gold, that's gold, you know? And I'm just like dying. So, and we have no commercial breaks. We're going and going and going. And so then it becomes like, okay, what would I want to hear as a fan on this broadcast? Hey, this is the situation they're in. Here's the momentum of the game. This is kind of what's going on. This is what Navy needs to do. From a quarterback's perspective, this guy's got to get everybody together, understand they're in a tough spot, backed up in their own territory. He's got to take a deep breath. This guy's got to be cool as a fan. Right now in this tough moment when all the bullets are flying, this Navy, the midshipmen, their boats are rocking now. You know, I just said something like that, like just because I thought that would be funny and different and cool, whatever. So that's essentially what we started doing. So being able to ad lib, studying your butt off and never knowing when, right? Never knowing when you're going to have to go into your bucket, but your bucket's got to be full because at any point you're going to have to pull out something that you don't think about during the week. And it always happens. Something always happens. So, you know, prepare for the unexpected, I guess. But that's the way it went every Sunday, right?
Right.
We saw a bunch of blitzes during the week. We saw a bunch of film during the week. And at some point, they're going to hit you with something that you didn't recognize. And either you figure it out or you get to the sidelines and try and figure it out. So that's just kind of the way it goes in TV. But that was a wild Saturday, man. That was really tough. That was like real work.
That must have been eye-opening. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now. So I've had the privilege to watch your second act, which I enjoy very much. So I know that you get up for the second hour of Get Up, which is at 6 a.m. your time. You are now Zooming live with everybody else. You're unshaven, you're open collared, you got a sports jacket on. Then 24 hours later, you're on ABC's ESPN College Game Day. You are clean shaven. You got a nice jacket on, a nice tie that's got a nice knot in it, white shirt. But let's talk a little bit about all the preparation that goes on behind the scenes that nobody gets to see that really puts you in the position that you're at now.
Yeah, so it's watching the games, understanding the content, and the first thing is understanding the platform that you're on. So for Get Up, it's more of a hot takey show. They want clicks on the internet. It's more of, you know, lead with your best stuff and get something a little racy, right? And that's totally different. The dichotomy between these two shows is incredible. But ABC is like super buttoned up.
Oh yeah.
Essentially, it's the, you know, soccer dad who's gone, you know, in the morning Saturday, gets back home after all their sports games, sits down, turns on the TV, and wants a recap of what he missed. What did I miss in the world of college football that I've been dying to get back to? Here I am. Give me the information. Show me the highlights that I missed. Give me the treetop level, you know, stuff. It's got to be, you know, 10 miles wide and about an inch deep. That's kind of where your knowledge is on that show. For Get Up, it's different. It's, you know, maybe a mile wide and, you know, 100 feet deep. Like you got to know a lot about what you're talking about, specific teams, and the way the dialogue goes. It's easier in person, but you get into some back and forth, especially when somebody thinks one thing and you think the other. If I think so-and-so is going to win and he thinks the opposing team's going to win, then it's like, well, why? Well, what about that? Well, what do you have to say about this? And so you kind of go back and forth. So that one, you have to have a little extra, you know, preparation wise. And then stuff like on the podcast, where Get Up's a little less formal, you know, shirt and tie, or shirt and a coat, no tie. ABC's very formal, very buttoned up, clean shaven, you know, shirt, tie, the whole deal. And then when you're on the podcast, it's, you know, baseball cap, t-shirt. It's a very casual thing. And that's more of talking like you do every day to somebody. And you want stories. That's what you want on podcasts. You want somebody to tell a story like, man, the night I was drafted, you would never believe what we were doing. Boom. That's cool, right? Those kind of things. Or, God, my dad, if you hear Adrian Peterson or, LaDainian Tomlinson or something, my dad used to always tell me, dude, I want to know what your dad used to always tell me. Those kind of things are really cool. So
Right.
that's the kind of like mindset I get myself in before any of those shows. And that's the most important thing. You got to understand the platform. But then when it comes to just football studying, I mean, you got to watch the games. You got to watch games, listening to commentary. Even last night, a great example was the Browns score, but they're still down 14, and they go for 2. And I was like, what are we doing here? And I know it worked out, and that's fine. But to me, on the broadcast, and Greasy does a good job, Riddick does a good job, but I wish they would have went into more of like the analytics, these new age analytics that tell you to go for 2 there. Because traditionally, you're down 14 points, you don't go for 2. You're down 15, you go for 2. And on everybody's call sheet, I wish they would have said, every coordinator has a little list of whatever point number margin there is that you're down when you go for 2, and when you're up when you go for 2, traditionally, just based on the numbers. So it's quick math. So you don't have, you're not up in the booth deciding like 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, okay, let's go for 2. You don't have time. So you have like this little cheat sheet on your call sheet. Every coordinator has it. So 1, I wish they would have said that. 2, I wish they would have went into these other analytics, but it brought up like this great discussion of nowadays these analytics are taking over the sport, and people are just like, well, there's, the chances of you now that these PATs are moved back, of missing one of the PATs is close enough to the numbers of going for the 2-point conversion both times, because you're probably going to get at least 1. And I was like, well, you're probably going to get at least 1. That's 8 and 6. You're still, what are we doing? That doesn't make sense. You might as well just go 7 and 7 to get to 14. I don't understand. So little things like that, like you have to be prepared for and prepared to discuss with people. And it's okay to not know the right answer for that specific discussion, right? Like that's an open-ended essay prompt, right? Like you can just kind of talk about how you feel. So little things like that, understanding, whether it's black and white or how gray it can be, those kind of things are important, and all that goes into your prep.
So Seth Greenberg always announces on Friday in our morning meeting, and I would assume that morning meeting is taking place at 7 in the morning, because he gets on at 8, you get on at 9. You don't join that morning meeting, do you? Do you prep with them the night before? How do you get prepped for what you're going to do on Get Up on Fridays?
Mike Greenberg, Mike Greeny. Greeny.
Yeah.
But he, so they do that morning meeting at 6 a.m. Last year when I was in studio, I would go to it, and then they have an hour in between. The meeting goes 6 to 7, and then the show starts at 8. So you have an hour to go change, get your makeup on, and get ready to go. And so, that morning meeting, when you're not in there, twofold. So another thing I learned in TV is, in that meeting, you want to give maybe a theme of where you're going, but don't use your best stuff. You don't want to give that away, because somebody else will take your shit. They'll just take your stuff, and they'll say it on, and some of it's like maybe because they weren't as prepared, or maybe because it was a great soundbite, or, especially your first year when you're with a bunch of veteran people, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to talk first anyway, so I'll just rip that. And you're like, whoa, dude, like that was, I studied my ass off for that, that stat, or like that took me a while to find their red zone completion percentage on 2nd and long. Like those are hard stats to find. So, thankfully we got a great stats team and all that, but to have those questions and ask those questions, but you also don't want to give away your best stuff. So now they'll call me the night before, and I'll just have a conversation with one of the producers, and essentially they'll run through the topics, they'll get my thoughts on it, and somebody will essentially read that in the meeting for me, is kind of like my representative, if you will, in the meeting, making sure that all of our themes line up. And then the other thing in that meeting is, you got to be careful, and sometimes you have to exercise a no muscle, because they'll push you to try and say, they want the sexy soundbite, right? They want the hot take that, Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback of all time, or Lamar Jackson really stinks right now. Like, they want you to say something like that and then back it up with your reasons. And they push you to try and get that, elicit the response that they're looking for, because that's fun TV. It makes good TV and fun to watch. And so you just have to be careful on certain things, because there's certain relationships that you want to keep with teams. Like, when people can start going back to football games, like, I'd like to go to a Jets game, so I'm not going to just trash the Jets. I'll talk that. Hey, they're not, they haven't won a game. So it's not like I'm breaking news saying they're not playing well. I could say they're not playing well, but I don't have to just be like, unload on them like some guys. Right. Some guys will just trash them. And so that's not really my style. And in those meetings, you kind of find, and in your first year of TV, I've kind of found who I am. Like, I'll shoot you straight, but I'll probably be a little more positive about most things. And that's just more my vibe. I'm not like the negative Nancy, contrarian, Malthusian, like doomsdayer. That's just not really who I am. If I need to play that part to, juxtapose my normal disposition, then that's kind of funny. And people will know it's a bit and it's an act or whatever. Like, he's usually a positive guy. Why is he so angry at Bart today? Or why is he so down on so-and-so? Right. Those kind of things add to it. But, that's kind of what takes place in those meetings, but you got to be careful. And I learned that early. You can't give away all your good stuff.
That's great. And so Drew Brees wins his second Super Bowl before Aaron Rodgers. You went out and made that statement a couple of weeks ago.
I really do think, I think the Saints I still think they're going to win it. I know they had a rough one last week, but the Eagles nobody knew what the Eagles were going to do. I don't even think the Eagles knew what they were going to do with Jalen Hurts. So everybody was surprised.
That's for sure. And then I thought about what you said, because obviously Dak had challenges with Dallas, and Colt had challenges with the Jets, and then Nick Foles had challenges. These are all good friends of yours that you played with, that you know well. And I'm like, how's he going to balance trying to be the real deal and knowing that, hey, Mark, what'd you throw me under the bus for? Come on, man.
Exactly.
You're my buddy. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
Sanchez, what are you thinking? They, payback's a bitch. When I'm done and go that route, I'm going to.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So that's interesting now. So tell us, who do you emulate? I remember you did that thing around the podcast that you did, and you just kind of slammed the table and said, I want to be the next Tony Romo. But who do you really emulate? Who do you admire for what they did? And I remember when you went to that boot camp in Bowling Green, you were blown away by some of the professionals that addressed you and the things that you said. So from that point on, who have you really emulated, and who do you respect?
Who I really love as hosts, which I'd like to actually be. I'd like to jump into more of that role as my career evolves. But what Kevin Nagandi does, what James Brown does, Kevin Nagandi's on our ABC show. He also hosts Sports Center, or anchors Sports Center. But James Brown is on CBS and on Inside the NFL with Showtime. Right. But those guys are so good at giving the filler commentary quickly between two analysts, summing up someone's points, getting them to where they want to be. And you hear this a lot in broadcasting, but the producer will kind of be in your ear when you start to ramble. They're like, land the plane, like finish your thought and land the damn plane and shut up, right? Is kind of what it means. And so Kevin will get you to the right landing place very well.
See that.
And it is, it's an incredible trait. He takes these detailed, copious notes, right? I mean, he is going 100 miles an hour during the broadcast. And the most important thing they do is they ask you questions. They want to know kind of where you're going so they can tee you up perfectly. So it's not just like an open-ended, blank question where you can go anywhere and maybe miss where you wanted to go. He'll find out before. He takes the time to interact with you. He takes the time to call me during the week, just like James Brown did when I was on Inside the NFL a couple times. Where do you want to go with this? What's your point? What are you trying to say? Who do you want to highlight? What are you staying away from? And once he gathers all that information, then he frames the question. So he literally just like throws you a soft lob and you can knock it out of the park. And when they set you up that way, it is so reassuring. It boosts your
beautiful
confidence.
thing.
You just,
Sure.
yeah, you're just like, boom, and you can nail it,
Right.
you know, with your answer and your commentary on the subject. So those are two guys that I really admire and look up to.
Terrific. And then you were recently, as you mentioned, you did The Masked Singer on Fox. You do Showtime. You've got your podcast. You talked about your branding. Where do you go from here? What else? What else is in your repertoire?
That's a good question.
And
you know, I thought The Masked Singer was so fun and a great chance to branch out and do something different.
Don't mean to interrupt you
You're good.
for a second. There was no way anyone was going to guess that was you, because very few people know that you have a voice, Mr. Sanchez, that could sing. Very few people.
So that was fun. That was different, and gave me a great opportunity to you know, jump into a new platform. But moving forward, I mean, this is, you know, I'm technically coming up on my contract year with ESPN, so I need to figure out whether I'm going to jump back in that same space or try and do something different, potentially call games. But, you know, a lot of decisions need to be made here before February, March-ish. And, you know, a lot of that based on family. I'll have time during the holidays to sit down and think about some stuff and which direction I want to head. I love what we're doing with the podcast. We have some great guests. You know, we have some good ones coming down the pipe too. I thought this last month and a half was really like, we're starting to hit our stride. So wherever this takes me, I'm in. I'd love to get into some acting stuff. I'd love to, you know, mess around that way, whether it's commercials or movies or TV, anything. I'm down. I'm ready to, you know, stretch myself and push myself and try new things. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, great. But, you know, there's, you know, I just said to my agent at the beginning, like, hey, if, you know, Mario Lopez calls in sick, I'll do that show. I'll go on extra. I'll go, you know, I'll go stand on the red carpet and interview people, celebrities, sports players. Like, that's what I do best. Just shoot the shit with people and ask them funny stuff and try and come up with good content. Like, I'm down with that. I love that. And, you know, stretch your creative muscles and go perform. So that's always been fun for me. And it'll be the same way moving forward.
Bringing it all together, advice for the young people, younger than you, Mark, believe it or not.
Holy cow!
That are on this call, making that pivot, next move. Summarize what's most important for them to think about, and thinking about who they are. You mentioned having confidence. Take it the next step.
Yeah, I think just understanding yourself, understanding what you're good at, what you love, trying to match that up with your job, you know, so it doesn't feel like work is always most important. And it doesn't always work out like that. Understanding too that, you know, you might not get this crazy opportunity at the beginning. It's okay to work your way up through something. You know, being on the ABC show really helped. But if that wasn't the case, that came in very late. I mean, I was going to do 10 other things and get 1 million reps doing other things until I got thrust into that scene. So it's okay to start somewhere, you know, towards the bottom and work your way up. I think that's kind of a lost art nowadays. You know, people are expecting something right away in the first couple months of working somewhere. If not, I'll just go somewhere else. And so, you know, I'd say stick with it as long as you can. And then the other thing too is your interactions with people. It's, you know, they say that about whether it's showbiz, TV, the NFL, sports, anything. I mean, it's a lot of it is who you know and the impression you leave on these people. So that first time, you know, there's nothing wrong with the, you know, when things are better, but a good old fashioned handshake, looking somebody in the eye, sending the follow-up email, whatever it is, and exhausting any of those resources you can manage to find. People appreciate that. And, you know, when you approach people like I have in this business and say, you know, I'm looking for some of your advice. I'd love to get some advice from you. That like to people, people want to feel wanted. People want to feel important. People want to feel loved and adored and all those things. So when you extend yourself that way, it just boosts their confidence and they're happy to help you instead of just saying like, hey, tell me everything you know about whatever. Then it's kind of like, oh, this person just wants something from me. But if it's, hey, I need your advice, now they're this esteemed, status. It's like, oh, wow, this is great. I mean, of course I'll give my advice. I'm a wise guy, I'm a smart man, that kind of thing. So I think the way you approach those things is really important. But that's it. And go after it. Whatever it is, man, you gotta attack it. There's no second guessing. Once you make the decision, go and don't be afraid to jump, and use all the resources you can. If I can be a resource, happy to help. So just email Jack if Jack's inbox is flooded. I'm sorry, Jack.
Be the best you can be every day. That's what I tell
doubt.
my children. Be the best you. All right, we're going to go to Q&A, but I'm going to ask you one more question, and I'm sure I know the answer, but 34 years young, change anything?
Would I change anything? Oh, dear. I don't think so.
No, it's gotten you to where you are. I mean, it's gotten to you. Look at you. You got the big smile. It's where you are. You don't need to change anything. You just keep right on moving there, Mr. QB. All right.
Yes, sir.
So yes, sir. A couple of questions from the audience. The first one comes from Anna Genter. What do you think about college athletes getting paid and the whole name, image, and likeness idea?
Yeah, I think, these kids are just so well educated now. The cat's out of the bag. There's no going back. It's essentially an avalanche now. And once they realize, it's always been the case, but these universities make so much money on the name, image, and likeness of these players that the players are like, wait a second. And you couple that with the television contracts, and we're not getting any of that. And all we get, and I shouldn't say all we get because it is something important, but is a scholarship. The scholarship's what? For tuition at USC when I was going to school was like $42,000 a year or semester or whatever. So it's probably up another $10,000, $12,000. But does that equate to the money that the university's bringing in based on the football program? I mean, the football program, not that it's any better or worse of a sport, but it's a fact that the football programs across the country support the rest of the sports on campus. They pay for all the other sports. So it's like, if you're a football player, you're like, wait a second, hold on. We're making all this money. You're selling my jersey in the bookstore. You're using my name, image, and likeness on this video game. You get, millions and millions of dollars on a TV contract for going to the Rose Bowl, but I get food and a scholarship? Wait a second. These players understand that now. When I was playing, I didn't even think about it. It just seemed like a fair trade because I didn't really have that awareness. And like I said, these guys now, they understand after watching what the NFL's done, what the NFLPA is trying to do, and make that revenue split 50-50. Now, I don't know if the players ever get to 50-50, but the argument that I've heard is like, if you're an Olympic swimmer on the USC swimming and diving team, and you want to have a swim camp or you want to teach kids how to swim in the summer, but you can't, advertise it on your Instagram, like that's not very fair. Or a soccer player who's on the World Cup team and also plays at USC wants to have a soccer camp, charge people $20 a head to come to her soccer camp, and she can't get paid for that. Like that's crazy, So some of these rules are so archaic that it's like, all right, maybe it's not going to be a 50-50 revenue split for TV deals, but come on, that's just insane. So I think now, the NCAA, it's a foregone conclusion that you also have to understand. I think the NCAA is going to be gone pretty soon. And it's a foregone conclusion because these universities essentially, they willingly submit themselves to the jurisdiction of the NCAA. Like the NCAA doesn't have some like binding, authority over everybody. The universities are just kind of like, yeah, we're kind of in the NCAA. I think it's just going to be a bunch of different conferences here pretty soon. And, other ones get absorbed by the Power Five, or the Power Five kind of run everything. and make some serious changes. But yeah, it's coming down the pipe, whether you agree with it or not. It doesn't matter as much to me. I think it'll eliminate some of the amateur status of these players. But also, if you're Trevor Lawrence or, Justin Fields, like, you put out one tweet, one Instagram post, that's, 50, 60, 70, $100,000, so that's life-changing money for these kids. And then now you just got to figure out a way to pay them. Do you defer the payment? Do you give them, health benefits for 5 years after they're done, or whatever, some sort of combination? Whatever it is, they should be compensated.
It's going to be a tug of war, though. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Because you're gonna have a lot of people who are more old school, don't understand a lot of what's going on today.
And the organization, you gotta organize people. You know what I mean? Right now, it's going to be like herding cats. There's a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds trying to figure all that out. That's a lot of stuff. I mean, the NFL needs a players association and a president and a whole, governing body to help them go through all these things. And they're essentially adults, so, as kids in college, I can only think of myself, and I'm like, damn, I would have had no clue, like, how I want the money, if I want deferred payment. I don't know, man. I'm just here to go to school and ball. Like,
right, exactly.
So
exactly. All right, next. This is coming from Danielle Parr. A lot of times, athletes' transition is often the last thing people consider when thinking about the pro sports space. What do you wish more people understood about that process? What do you feel is missing for athletes in terms of career transition?
Yeah, I think these leagues are putting more of an emphasis on helping players transition into different fields. And that's something that's kind of gone, it was kind of fell by the wayside for a while, and now is more important. But these boot camps, whether it's for broadcasting, they have a public speaking one that I also did. They have one for entertainment and, more like Hollywood and movies and TV. They have a business boot camp at Wharton, I believe. So there's other opportunities, and that's I think the only fault of the leagues is it's not publicized enough, one, and two, it's not utilized enough by the players. They just think like, hey, I'm kind of done playing, and all these opportunities are just going to fall in my lap. And for some players, yeah, it does happen that way. But for other guys, like, this stuff will get you in the door. The fact that I played for the Jets or played in the NFL for a long time got me in the door. Then it's like, okay, what are you going to do to stay here? And that's where you really got to study. You really got to show either your personality or something that you bring to whatever show or platform that they need, or else they're just going to get somebody else. So yeah, that's a really good question, but they've put a real emphasis on that. And a lot of that has to come from the players. They have to have the internal drive to want to use those resources. And it's a two-way street.
And then this is a good segue. Do you think that the professional leagues, such as the NFL, need to do more to prepare their athletes for life once they retire, such as helping them secure jobs or potential business ventures? And that comes from Sam Borg.
Yeah, I think great question, Sam. They do. And part of that is the people you vote into the Players Association, like board of directors and stuff. Those are the kind of people that look out for players once they're done, whether it's health benefits or, your 401k plan, your pension plan, all that kind of stuff is involved in that. And then the other thing is too, the players got to educate themselves, because you don't realize it as a player, just like I didn't. And you don't think about it. You think, hey man, I'm making money. It's great. Well, you make that money for 16 weeks, essentially 20 weeks of the year. And then you don't get paychecks until the next, training camp. So guys don't really understand that as players, as rookies. And guys, you think like, oh, he's in the NFL, he's making a ton of money. Well, yeah, you're making money. The minimum's, 300,000+. That's great. Well, half of that's gone in taxes. Then it's like, okay, you got to pay your agent something. You got to find a place to live. You got, you start incurring all these expenses. And now you look at what you've made and it's like, whoa, I got to save some of that. I can't just burn through that. And so players, there's financial literacy that they have to go through. And all these programs are offered. It's just, are the players really engaged? Do they really want to learn it? Do they want to utilize these skills? Because right now, they're essentially on autopilot, just playing every season. And then something happens and they're done. Now they're like, whoa, what do I do? And I've just seen plenty of guys with nothing to do. And, you know, the what is it? The idle mind is the workshop of the devil. So you better find something to keep yourself busy.
That's for
Because
sure.
you know you'll burn through your money, and all of a sudden you got a million friends because you're in the NFL, and now your money's all gone, and now you got to find a place to work. So it's a dangerous space, but if you manage it correctly and handle it correctly, you can really maximize your resources and do really well and be successful.
Okay, we got a couple of questions from the gallery. What's the most influential thing you learned from playing under Rex Ryan?
Ooh, man.
And that's from Jared Levison.
You know, I think LaDainian actually told this story that we had LaDainian Tomlinson on our podcast. I think it's coming out either tomorrow, Friday, or tomorrow or Thursday. But he told his favorite Rex Ryan story. And during our my second year, 2010, LaDainian's first year with the team, he came over from the Chargers. We played. We're us versus the Pats. We're both like 9-0 or 8-0 or something like that on Monday night, and we just got our asses kicked. It was like 45-3 or 48-3 or something, and just got smacked and embarrassed on Monday Night Football. I think I put Lee Bodden in the Pro Bowl because I threw him like 4 interceptions. It was just an awful game. The reason I say that is because I remember seeing Lee Bodden at the Super Bowl after the season doing some marketing stuff, and I see him at a bar at one of these, you know, Maxim parties or something, and he sends me a drink from the bartender and just kind of like gives me a piece and like a thumbs up, like, yo, I'm going to the Pro Bowl, thanks for those 3 picks. I'm like, you dickhead, like, get out of here. So it was all in fun, but it sucked at the moment. And so Rex took the entire team outside, took one of the game balls from the game, literally dug a hole in front of us next to our facility on the grass on the field, and buried the ball. And it was just a symbol of, you know, flushing something crappy down the drain and just leaving it there. Like, move on from it. We're not talking about this anymore. We've learned what we're going to learn from it. And if we ever get that opportunity again, we're not going to squander it like we did the other night. And so reminding yourself that there will be a second chance. Maybe it's not the perfect, you know, way. And there's no excuses for missing your first opportunity. But if you ever get that chance again, that's got to go in like your mental Rolodex. I'm never going to let that happen again. And here's what I'm going to do to change that. And so that was the year we ended up beating them in the playoffs in the divisional round. And, you know, safe to say that everybody took that message to heart. And the next time we got the opportunity up in Foxborough, we played much better. And I think that was a big part of it.
Excellent. Anonymous, outside of the Jets, what was your favorite NFL organization to be a part of?
Oh man,
I'll add something to that, Mark. Which organization do you respect the most that you were associated with, and how they run their organization?
Yeah. And I've said this forever. It's not because it worked out with my situation, but probably the Denver Broncos. I went there. I got traded from Philly, and right. I was there for all the off season, through preseason, and got called up to Elway's office, and he cut me. And I was just like shocked. I mean, you got to understand, Elway, I had pictures of Elway on my wall. Like, this is a guy, him, Brett Favre, Troy Aikman, Dan Marino, like, those are quarterbacks I watched growing up. And so this was like a crushing blow. It was the most elated I've been in a long time, because I was kind of, you know, cast away from the Jets. I get to play a little bit in Philly. We missed the playoffs, and Sam Bradford comes in, he starts, and I'm just kind of like this afterthought, and I get shipped off to Denver, and I'm like, oh my God, the year after they win the Super Bowl, we still have, you know, 2 great receivers. We got a solid tight end. We got running backs. We got a decent O-line. Like, we got a great defense, good special teams. Like, this is my shot. And so I'm competing with Trevor Siemian, and I'm playing my ass off. I'm feeling like I'm doing pretty well in the offseason. We go through training camp. I do fine. In the games, I outperformed him in the preseason. I didn't play my best, but I still played better than Trev with all of our stats and everything. And so when I got the call to go up there, I was just like, what the hell? Like, maybe he just wants to talk to me. There's no way he's going to cut me right now. Not for, no offense to Trevor, but I was just like, not for Trevor. Like, I outplayed it. Like, this is crazy. And so he was just so direct and fair and easy, and everything flows through him. That's why I respect them so much. They're all marching in the same direction. It might be the wrong direction. In my opinion, that was the wrong move. I wanted to be there. I thought I could have helped that team. They needed a veteran quarterback, not somebody young like that. But, you know, Trevor went out and I think they were either 8-8 or 7-9 or 9-7, something like that. So they have an average year. But the way he said it was just like, sorry, dude, we're going to go in a different direction. And, you know, appreciate everything you've done for us. You're great in the locker room. Guys really love you. And, but we're just going to go with Trev. We got a great defense, great special teams. And we're not going to pay you $4 million right now. We're going to use that to pay off CJ Anderson. You've got to re-up his contract. Emmanuel Sanders got to re-up him. And so we're just going to pay Trev and roll the dice with Trevor. So thank you so much for everything. And just like, that was it. I was like, do you guys want to just like cut me and sign me for minimum? And then like, I could be the backup. And then if something happens to Trevor, I could go play like, and prove to you wrong, you know, that kind of thing. So it was like this crushing blow. But at the same time, I had so much respect for just like, you know, the open dialogue, the direct, just, hey man, this is what's up. And because other teams, they play games, hey, you're our guy, you're this, you're that. And then something else happens. And you're like, dude, what are we doing? You know, I wish you would have just told me, like, I'm an adult, treat me like an adult. Don't try and pull the wool over my eyes. So I just appreciated that. And I think they run a great organization.
Excellent. All right. Another question from someone that we both know. It's a loaded question, but I'm going to ask it so I'm not accused of not asking a question. This is from Adam Bolden.
Oh, I read this. Would I consider being a male model?
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks a lot,
Are you
Adam.
kidding me, Adam? Yeah, really, Adam. Are you kidding me?
I've already checked that box, Adam. Next.
Right. Jesus. Are you kidding me? I was like, when I saw that come up, I'm really, Adam? Really? Come on. It's exactly. It's all right. He's young too. We'll let him go.
Ooh. Would I encourage my son to play tackle football?
That is from Sherry Schnall.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'd probably just start him off in flag. I started playing tackle football when I was 7. That's just kind of what you did. I know concussions are a huge issue. I'm not, you know, minimizing that issue. I just think when you're that little, I don't think you generate enough force to like really hurt each other until you probably get to high school, college. And even in high school, it's pretty low. But you get to college, you get to the NFL, of course, it's a different animal. I don't know if, I think I'd at least start him in flag when he's young. And I think it's easier to teach them the game like that. You know, strategy and understanding positions and offense versus defense, that kind of stuff. You lose out a little bit on the special teams and all that, but without having to worry about somebody just like, you know, coming and knocking you over, it's kind of nice. But I still think there's that physical element to it that, you know, you get the wind knocked out of you for the first time. You know, a bigger guy just flattens you on the field for the first time. And that kind of stuff happens either physically and literally or emotionally and figuratively in your life, you know? And so you gotta be able to take a hit like a boxer. You gotta be able to take a punch, and you never know. This guy could be really good on the mitts. You know, he can nail the speed bag. He's just, you know, he's the guy. And he gets in the ring and he gets hit, and he's like starry-eyed and he just wasn't built for that, you know? So I think there's something good that comes out of that. And I appreciate it from growing up, but that's going to be that'll be a fun conversation with Mom about how to handle that.
Sure is. That's right in line. All right. And now a final question. We have a celebrity on the who's listening in, Connie Lippert. So Connie Lippert. So Connie has always been intrigued by, you know, she sees you on the Zoom on Friday, and then of course when we're out at the house, I've got you on the TV on Saturday. But given the COVID world that we live in, And
Yeah.
given the restrictions, how are you
Yeah.
able to do this? What kind of protocol do you face? What do you have to go through?
Yeah, it's that's another good question. Thank you, Connie, on the Mercedes-Benz celebrity hotline. Uh, we basically, you know, I had to actually fight to get this ABC gig back because they wanted me to do it remote from LA and potentially put me on ESPN2. And once I had been on ABC, I was like, whoa, dude, I don't know if I want to go back down to E2. It's just a different platform. It's not nearly the amount of eyeballs. And once you've played on varsity, it's like, you don't want to go back to the JV squad, right? Like that's just, it doesn't work like that. And so for the way my career was trending, I had to talk and negotiate with ESPN on how I was going to do this. And so part of it was electing to fly out there every week. And now with so many fewer flights, last year it was easy. I'd fly in on Thursday, wake up Friday, do get up in New York. I'd fly into New York, get up on Friday, do the show, get up, drive up to Bristol Saturday morning, do the show, and fly home. Well, there was a direct home from Bristol to LA. Well, now I fly from Orange County on Friday. I do the show Friday morning from my house from right here. Then I get on a flight around noon from Orange County, fly to either Atlanta, Denver, or Detroit, connect to Hartford in Connecticut.
Wow.
And I get in at, 11:30 midnight-ish on Friday night, and then wake up Saturday and do the show from about noon to 11 o'clock at night. And then fly back on the earliest flight at 6 a.m. the next morning from Hartford and connect in either Denver, Detroit, or Atlanta, and fly back home. So on the way out, I get tested for COVID. On the way home, as soon as I get home, I get tested for COVID. On the way out there, it's for ESPN. And on the way home, it's more for my own peace of mind and to make sure I could see my family and everything. But, other than maybe NFL players and I don't know, heads of state and stuff like that, I got to be the most tested guy in the country. So, and fingers crossed, I got a good streak going, and so we'll just keep rolling with that. But it's it's you make sacrifices. In Thanksgiving, I was delayed for 4 hours in the Atlanta airport, and that's just the way it goes. So it's all worth it to have that gig, and I appreciate the guys I work with. So I really wanted to keep it.
That's terrific. All right. So before we let you go, one thing for the audience, one story that makes you chuckle even to this day that either was from your playing career, either on the field or off the field. And I know personally you got plenty.
Yeah, I think, well, here's a good one. For Get Up on Fridays, we said we do the production meeting at 6. This was last year, my rookie year of TV. So we have the production meeting at 6. It goes till 7. Then from 7 to 8, you go get ready in the dressing room, get your makeup on, and show up on set at 7:50. Well, sometimes at 7:40, there would be a Sports Center morning hit that they want you to do remote from the Seaport Studios in New York, where we were getting ready for Get Up. Well, one of the mornings they sent me an email to be on the show. And they said, hey, if you'd be comfortable coming on at this time to talk about this subject, whatever, we'd love to have you on. And so because they phrased the question that way, usually all the other stuff is like a direction or more of a command or an order, right? They're just like, hey, you're on today at 7:50 or whatever they say, right? That's the email. You're talking about blah, blah, blah. Well, since they said, if you feel comfortable or if you want to come on. So I was like, I don't really have much commentary on that subject. I studied a lot of other stuff and I only have like 20 minutes to get ready for that. So I said, no, I declined. Well, I didn't realize this was like, absolute taboo. You don't do that. I don't know. And I'm like in week 3, week 3 of my new job. And so I was like, no, thanks. And I didn't say it to be a jerk. I just really didn't have anything good on it. And I figured there was somebody else who did. So Jonathan Vilma goes in and does it. And he found out that I said no. And he's like, bro, you stiff-armed Sports Center? You can't do that. So then it became a thing. And I was like, oh, tell him I'm available. I don't know. Tell him I'll go on next week. Then after that, never called, never emailed, nothing. No more Sports Center. So I was essentially on the blackballed Sports Center list, okay? For months. This went on for like 3 months. Now it's the end of the season, and I share this story with Kevin Nagandi. He goes, why didn't you tell me? I'd get you on SportsCenter, blah, blah, blah. I said, I mean, I don't know if it's a bad thing. Maybe I pissed off everybody here at ESPN. Maybe they don't want me back next year. I don't know. But whatever it is, SportsCenter does not like me. And so he's like, let me smooth it over. I'll get you on our show on Friday. So I did get up Friday. This is now December. This all happened in September. I tell Kevin the story in early December. He gets me on SportsCenter on a Friday at like 6 p.m. And he goes, he's like, yeah, just come up early that day. Instead of coming up on a Saturday morning, come out Friday and you'll be on SportsCenter. Come stay at my house. We'll go eat, whatever. And then we'll do our Saturday college football show. I said, cool. So I go in on Friday and we walk in the studio and he's doing an interview with, God, who's the boxing commentator? Freddie Roach? Or is he the trainer?
Yep.
No, he's a commentator.
Guy.
Yeah.
The
Roach.
old guy. Yeah.
He's talking about an upcoming boxing match. And I'm backstage of SportsCenter and I didn't realize Kevin was like on. They were on air. And so I stroll into the studio and they're miking me up and I peek around the corner to say, hey, Kev, guess who's on SportsCenter? Like joking around. Well, as soon as I turned around the corner, I see the red on air lights right above the camera, like the big camera focusing on Kevin and I'm right behind his head. And so you see me peek in and I was like, hey, oh shit. And I look at the guy back there and he's like, what are you doing? I was like, are they on? And he points up to the thing and the doorway that I'm looking through has this giant red letters in red lights. It says on air. He's like, what are you doing?
That's good.
So there's a picture of Kevin Nagandi talking to Freddie Roach, and you just see my head floating behind him like Baby Yoda like this. You just see him like that. It was so funny. So Kevin has it like printed out. He'll send it to me every once in a while, but it was such a me move, and it made it really funny because they brought it back up in the segment that I went on with Kevin. I go on air, and then they brought up the still shot that they froze from what just happened, and Kev like asked me a question about it, so I had to give some commentary on it live on SportsCenter, which was really funny. So that was one of my favorite TV ones.
That's great. And if we take one from your playing career or something you did off, can I make a suggestion? What about when you went to see Obama?
Oh God, that's just a long one. It was a series of these bonehead events, but the best part about it is the White House obviously has these state dinners, and I'm on the phone with my brother bragging to him that I got invited to a steak dinner, like steak house at the White House. And he's like, yeah, steak dinner. And I said, yeah, steak dinner. And he goes, are you saying steak, like A1 steak sauce? And I said, yeah, they said it's a steak dinner. I just talked to the PR guy. He goes, you're such a moron. It's a state dinner, like the United States. So I was just like, oh, of course it is. But the best part about that story is we're flying in. I forget my shoes. I forget my shirt. I forget all this stuff. And I have to go when we land to a men's warehouse. I rush in there. It's in the spring. It happens to be right during prom. There's a million people in this store. And I had to give the guy like $500. And I was like, yo, I really need help. My name's Mark Sanchez. I play for the Jets. I'm supposed to go to the White House. We have to be there in like 20 minutes. Can I please get a tuxedo top? I need a shirt. I need a bow tie. I need cufflinks. I need all this stuff. I left everything at home. I'm a complete moron. I'm very, very sorry. And so this dude totally hooked it up. Later on, he ended up becoming he was a huge DC fan for formerly the Redskins, now the Washington football team. But I still remain in contact with him. And, we got him tickets anytime we'd go play in DC, we'd always get him tickets. And then when I was eventually on the team, we got him tickets to games. So it ended up working out. But even Obama said, hey, you guys clean up nice, and I was just like, yeah, well, it's a custom suit. So it was pretty cool.
There you go. On that note, I want to thank you very much for your time. I think everybody got a little insight as to who Mark Sanchez is. And I want to thank the SSBC team for the great work that they've done. And Mark, I'll see you on Get Up on Friday and look forward to it.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Be well. Thanks again.